Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm having trouble hearing you. I don't know if anyone else is, but I'm having trouble hearing you.
Your mic doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah, I'm having trouble also.
I think it's the mic, Joe.
No.
No, try it again. No.
What number was 1-3? Oh, geez, what are we doing? Residential difference.
Is Jimmy on and okay?
Jimmy's on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Good evening. This is Joseph Bodash. I'd like to call to order the November 12th, 2024 Wrentham Select Board meeting. In accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this public meeting of the Select Board shall be conducted remote via Zoom. The agenda is posted on the town's website, identifies how the public can join. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Permit me to confirm all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Select Board Member Anderson.
Anderson's here.
Select Board Member Gallo.
Gallo here, loud and clear.
Select Board Member Harrington.
Harrington here.
And Select Board Member Rouse.
Rouse here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond to the affirmative. Town Manager Kevin Sweet.
Present.
Assistant Town Administrator Greg Enos.
Here.
Executive Assistant Amanda Vazzapolo.
Present.
Also joining us tonight is our Finance Director, Mike King.
Present.
Our Assessor, Robert Scottham.
Here.
And our DPW Superintendent, Brian Antonelli.
Present.
All right. We're going to hop right into the public hearing right now on tab 2. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Gallo, seconded by Select Board Member Anderson. Roll call vote. Anderson.
Anderson's yes.
Potash, yes. Gallo.
Gallo, yes.
Harrington.
Harrington, yes.
And Select Board Member Rouse.
Rouse, yes.
That passed 5-0. At this time, the chair entertain a motion to waive the public reading of the public notice.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion made by Selectman Gallo, seconded by Selectman Anderson. Roll call vote. Anderson.
Anderson's yes.
Potash, yes. Gallo.
Gallo, yes.
Select Board Member Harrington.
Harrington, yes.
And Select Board Member Rouse.
Rouse, yes.
Please bear with me. I just did a rinse to try to get my voice back. At At this time, we have our Board of Assessors with us, and I'll ask the chair to open the meeting.
Yes, good evening, Board of Selectmen. And like to make a motion to open the public here, to open our meeting for a public hearing with the Board of Selectmen. Do I hear a second? Your audio is off, Irene.
Second,
Okay. Seeing that all those present are in the affirmative, I open the Board of Assessors meeting to have a hearing with the Board of Selectmen.
All right. So, Tom, if you could go through your presentation for us.
I will on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could, first of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Selectmen for inviting us here tonight and to make this presentation. This is a rather lengthy presentation, as it is always every year. There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of confusing data. So I'm going to do my best to explain this, but I'm also going to make an offer out there that myself and Head Assessor Rob Scotton would be willing to meet with a smaller group of the Board of Selectmen in person to go over some of these figures, more in detail and things if it's a little bit easier and makes more sense. We can talk about that after my presentation, and I also know there's a follow-up meeting next week as well. With that said, is it possible that somebody could, I'm not sure who has it, but has the Town of Wrentham fiscal year classification hearing information for presentation that could be on screen?
yeah, does anybody have that? Oh God, I can't do it. That's all I have.
Yeah, Amanda, do you have that to pull up? There we go.
Good.
We maximize that screen, Amanda, by any chance?
It's in our packet. Amanda sent it to each one of us.
Yep. Amanda, if you'd be so kind, if I could just actually, you could flip through this as I go through things. You see, as the cover page tonight, basically on page 2, and everybody should have the same information in their packets, but just for anybody at home that could follow along with this. Basically, the Assessors Department is governed by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue regulations, and every year qualified sales must be analyzed from the last full calendar year and adjusted accordingly. For fiscal year 2025 values, we must use sales data from calendar year 2023. The assessors is always a little bit behind. It's not current. We're always a year and a half or so behind. Property values are submitted to and certified by the Department of Revenue each year. The Town of Wrentham has completed the fiscal year 2025 interim update with assistance of Vision Government Solutions, Inc. for all real property, and Real Estate Research Consultants, Inc. for all personal property. We've received preliminary approval of the values from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue. The outcome of this analysis for residential properties has resulted with an overall adjustment of the residential class as described. Basically, the single-family housing properties have gone up an average of 9.3%. 2- and 3-family properties have gone up 4.9%, and condominiums have gone up 7.3%. As a whole, the residential class has gone up 8.56% when you average those all out. Based on the analysis of vacant land sales, the residential land values were increased by 10%. So there was a lot of increase in the residentially zoned land. There were a total of 95 qualified sales in the Town of Wrentham from calendar year 2023. The ratios are based on a level of assessment of 95% of the market value. In the calendar year 2023, there was a continued increase in home prices and a decline in inventory available to buyers. I think all of us have experienced that and seen the significant increases in residential properties. In fiscal year 2024, Wrentham recorded 39 1,188,720 in new growth assessment, resulting in $573,327 of new tax revenue. 41.77% of all new growth was the result of development and improvement of the residential class. Personal property accounts for 20.35%, and 37.88% of commercial industrial improvements contributed to new growth. So you can see that the single family residential properties increased almost 10%, as well as the land increased 10%. That's a significant increase. There was an increase with commercial as well, and we'll get to that in just a bit. If we could go to page 3. I always find this page interesting on that. You can see fiscal year 2024 and fiscal year 2025 land adjustments. But I actually like looking at the bar graph below, which actually breaks down how the increase in particular housing styles and architectural styles is impacted. And when you look at bungalow and you look at the lighter gray blue column, which is fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2025, you can see how much like a bungalow increased. And then we go to an antique house or a family conversion house near the end of the graph, and you can see they've stayed about equal in their increases year over year with that. So it just gives a feel for how we're seeing the residential market moving and when it's broken down architecturally. Page 4. It's always good to see an assessment by class and a history thereof with things. I always find this chart particularly interesting. When we look at 2018, the first year present, we look at what the total assessment was by class for residential was $1,690,577,654 to what it is going into 2025. You have 2.9,021,069,251, roughly, a little under a $1.3 billion increase in residential values. That's significant when you figure over 7 years. And when you look at commercial property, you have 372,532,796 increase up to 457,321,770. Once again, there's not a lot of commercial properties in the town. The town is significantly residential, and there's just not a lot of commercial properties to offset the residential growth on them. So as you can see down below in the 2025, from 2024 to 2025, the increase in residential is 8.56%, which is the bottom of the first column in red. And the increase in commercial is 3.18%. So you can see there was a little over a 5% increase in difference in values when you go from commercial to residential, and include all the property types within those. If we go to page 5. The residential factor will decide the percentages of the tax levy that each class of real property and personal property will bear. A residential factor of 1 will result in the taxation of all property, residential and commercial, as one single tax rate. A residential factor of less than 1 reduces the share of the tax levy paid by the residential class and increases the share paid by the commercial, industrial, personal property, CIP classes. Therefore, the residential property owners will pay a proportionately lower share of the total tax levy. Once again, there's not as many commercial properties to spread that over. The diagram below illustrates the shared levy difference between a single tax rate compared to a split tax rate using fiscal year 2024 data. You can see if we use a single tax rate, the tax rate would have been $12.94. And that shows you the breakdown of it. 82% would have been residential, and roughly 12% would have been commercial, and 2% industrial, and 4% personal property. And what we're looking at right now, if we broke down 2024 at $12 with the split rate, the residential is paying 76%, so it's paying 6% less of the levy, while the commercial, industrial, and personal property is paying roughly closer to 24%. All right, if we could flip to page 6.
It's going. Jeez.
This is basically making a bar graph going from 2021 to 2025 so that you can see the percentage share of valuation. As you can see, okay, the percentage share of valuation back in 2021, we were at 79.9%, then 76.22%, and then was around 82.7, 82.356 going through 2024. This is the first time in recent memory that the percentage share of valuation that the residential has is 83.151. We have to be careful that that never exceeds 85%. I don't want to go into that right now, but that's something that Rob Scotton could explain, especially if we had more of a working session with things. But that could impact the town, especially the residential class, in an impact that I don't think anybody would want to see. So that's something we could talk about if that decides to move forward with a working group session on things. All right, page 7. Tax rate history. This is personal property, commercial, residential. Just shows the tax rate history. No surprise here. The residential rate keeps dropping down. From 2020, it was $14.25 per thousand to 2024, where it was $12 per thousand. Commercial is $18.36 in 2020, and then pretty much stayed in the 17s, 18, 1681 in 2023, and 1734 last year. So you're comparing last year, $12 for the residential class and $17.34 for the commercial class tax rates. Page 8. This just gives us a look at surrounding towns, how we relate to surrounding towns. As this is a competitive market, all towns are trying to attract commercial, industrial types of uses, things that don't impact the tax base in the town. And when you look around, our commercial industrial is at $17.37. Our residential is at $12 per thousand. Okay, Norfolk is significantly higher at $15.57 for a residential rate. They have a single rate. They essentially have no commercial or very little commercial properties. Franklin has quite a bit of commercial properties, and they have a single rate of $11.79. Bellingham's residential rate is $12.86 and commercial is $18.52. Plainville's $18.79 for commercial, $12 for residential. Foxborough is $13.51 and commercial is $17.99. So at $17.37, what we were in 2024, we were on a commercial tax rate, probably on the lower average to our neighboring towns, with the exception of Franklin, which has a tremendous amount of commercial. And we were definitely on the lower end of the spectrum with residential tax rates as well. Going on to page 9. It shows the history of the commercial, industrial, personal property shift from 2020 to 2024. And you can see, with the exception of 2021, it's gradually increased from 1.22 to 1.34 is what it was last year. Page number 10. Last year, we presented to the board a chart of median values and the impact based on those median values. And this is where we'd like to make a couple of other presentations to the town with this. But we put this in the packet here, but there were 3 other spreadsheets that showed average median and an options range that would like to sort of show to the town here, but to the Board of Selectmen. But if we were looking at this and we wanted to try to actually bring it as close as possible with residential and commercial impact, you would probably be looking somewhere in the 1.43 to 1.44 shift range. And if you follow that all the way over to the far right, you'll see at 1.43, you have $341 for a residential impact. That's an increase on the on that residential tax bill. That is $663,100. And for that same column in the 1.43 shift, I should say line, it would be $355, so roughly about $13, $14 more the commercial would pay for the commercial average median value of $538,100. And as the assessors reviewed this, and then even in the past, when we reviewed how we used to do things, this is a median chart of how we used to look at the values from year to year, and then how we used to look at an average or a mean value. What the assessors became more uncomfortable with, the more we looked at it, is this is just a snapshot of just those particular values at this particular time with these shifts. And we felt that it's our responsibility to give the Board of Selectmen the, most relevant information and as much information as we can so that they can make the best decision they can for all taxpayers. So this is in the past is what we've done on median values with this. Now on the next page, page 11, this is average value. So the average residential value, you'll see a difference here, is $705,469. That's all residential properties, all architectural styles, all single family, all apartments, 2-family, 3-family, everything combined, and that's the residential average, okay? The commercial average is all commercial properties with the exception of the outlet mall. The outlet mall would skew that commercial average significantly more. It truly is an outlier, okay? The one thing that I can say is in the residential average, there are larger residential apartment complexes in that average, which actually bring that up just a little bit as well. Now, if we were to look at this chart here, for what may be the most equal.
Tom,
Okay.
1 second. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
The apartment buildings aren't part of this average. This is just single family homes, this average.
It's just single family. Thank you, Rob. So it's just single family, 2-family, 3 families, not anything more apartments wise than that?
Just single families.
Just single families. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So just single families on the residential average. So we're just looking at that point there. But if we're trying to find the what would be the equivalent residential commercial impact with this, it brings us up to more like a 1.32 shift. Okay. And that resident, if you follow that over to the 2 far right columns, once again, you get $545 increase on the average residential and $523 increase in the average commercial. Once again, we're just looking at a snapshot of that residential value and the commercial value. So it really doesn't tell us what happens as a whole across the broader spectrum to all taxpayers. It's only if you have a commercial building at that value or a residential house at that value that you see. Now, if we were looking at that, the 1.32 shift would be dollar-wise what would increase everything equally for the average value of a residential house and the average commercial value. If we wanted to look at that based on percentages, we'd probably want to go down to 1.37 And actually, that's not on this chart, is it, Rob? That's on the other chart that we put together. So, yeah.
That's on the two spreadsheets.
Yeah, it's on the two spreadsheets. So let me see here, just to wrap this up and
This
then
one here.
yeah. Just to wrap this up, if we go to page 12, and then I'd like to go to a couple of other spreadsheets that we submitted to the board. Okay. For fiscal year 2025, values reflect a slowdown in overall sales and continued high prices in the real estate market in calendar year 2023. The residential class represents 83.15% of the total value in the town. These values set the parameters of the tax rate options the municipality may adopt. Each year, the Board of Assessors must classify all real property according to use. Annually, the Select Board must hold a public hearing to decide the percentage of the tax levy that's paid by each class of real property, and that's what we're doing here tonight. Municipalities must decide whether to tax all classes of property at their full and fair cash valuation share of the tax levy, which results in a single tax rate, or to reduce the share of the tax levy paid by residential and shift those taxes to commercial, industrial, and personal property taxpayers, which results in a split tax rate. If a shift is not adopted, the single tax rate for fiscal year 2025 would be $12.59 for all classes. The Select Board holds an annual classification hearing to determine if the levy gets divided evenly via a single tax rate or if the tax burden gets shifted between the classes. The Select Board will also vote to approve, deny small commercial exemptions and residential exemptions at this time. Adopting a small commercial exemption shifts the tax burden from eligible commercial properties to a non-eligible commercial property and all industrial properties. Residential and personal property parcels are not affected by this exemption. The town of Wrentham only has 18 eligible commercial properties. Adopting a residential exemption increases the residential tax rate. The higher rate creates a shift within the residential class, which reduces the taxes paid by homeowners with moderately valued property and applies those taxes to owners of rental properties, vacation homes, and higher valued homes. The residential exemption is a benefit to property owners domiciled in areas made up primarily of vacation or rental properties, for instance, like Cape Cod. There are currently only a smaller number of communities in Massachusetts that have ever adopted that residential exemption. So, the last page is page 13, which what we're going to have to vote on, I think, at the next meeting. But we'll just set that aside for right now. What I'd like to do is, we did submit 3 larger spreadsheets. The average, fiscal year 25, average, median, and then a range. And if possible, if we could pull up the fiscal year 25 options range. And I'd like to explain what the assessors prepared. Actually, to be honest, what Rob Scotton prepared. I don't want to take any credit away from Rob.
Where is that? Okay.
Thank you, Amanda. So before we get to the yellow horizontal line, what I wanted to say is, on the first chart we looked at fiscal year 2025 options with the median. And by median, I mean half the values are above a certain range and half are below a certain range. And when we looked at that, Amanda, is there a way to blow that up possibly? Just so maybe people at home can see that. Okay. So if everyone remembers when we were on that first median, we said somewhere between 1.43 and 1.44 broke down pretty even with an average impact or increase to the taxes for a residential commercial property, roughly being around $341 or $355 commercial. But if we look at just the 1.43 horizontal line in here, yep, thank you. You see the tax rate would be $11.49 for residential and $18.03 for commercial. Now let me explain this chart here. What we wanted to do was present what's the impact on residential and commercial owners from 500,000 to 1.2 million. Okay? And what we did is we actually took, this represents the increase from last year to this year of 9.3% residential and 3.18 for commercial. And for instance, a commercial property of 500,000 and a residential property of 500,000, and then applied the shift to each one of those. From 500,000 to 1.2 million, this range represents approximately 80% of all parcels, properties in the town of Wrentham. So this is a great skew of what, how the selectmen's vote will impact 80% of taxpayers in the town of Wrentham. So going to 1.43, okay, if we go down and look at that column, thank you, Amanda, and we look at $500,000. So now this is just the increase, okay, because this is based on a shift that's already been in existence in 2000, in previous years, 2024. So now, if the selectmen voted for a 1.43 shift, the average residential property that's $500,000 would see an increase of $333, while that same commercial property, that individual that owns a $500,000 property would see roughly a $606 increase. The assessors believe that if you have property owners that have the same valued property, that those increases year over year, what we're trying to do is make sure that the taxpayer, or at least the selectmen, see what the impact is to each taxpayer to try to keep those so they're even. And that shift is how you do that. The Board of Selectmen votes on that. So you can see there's a significant increase on the commercial, okay, when we look at a broader range here than the residential, if the board went with 1.43. Amanda, if we could just shift that over to the 1.2 million and see what it does on the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay, you would see a residential property owner that has a house worth 1.2 million, their property would go up $727, while that commercial average property owner would see theirs go up $1,454, or roughly twice as much. So once again, it's deceiving. When we looked at the median graph before and in previous years, we just saw a snapshot of those values. What did it do at 663,000 compared to 538,000 commercial? Okay. Now, I'm just going to pull a number out from the fiscal year 2025 average chart that we just went over. Okay. And if we were going by that, it said that 1.32 would be the dollar amount that we should shift it to based on an average value of $705,469 for residential properties, single-family properties, and $1,341,365 for commercial. So, but if we look at what 1.32 does, okay, on a $500,000 residential property, okay, it increases $473, and the commercial owner gets a break at a credit of actually $88. So once again, you can see how that snapshot of information can influence the board, probably in a decision that may not be fair to all taxpayers. That's why the Board of Assessors decided to present this information in a range like that. So that's, I wanted to show, because when we were showing the shift potentials with average or mean versus and median, we had 1.32 and 1.43. And you could see how those are sort of unfair when you looked at the whole range that's in front of you. Which brings us to 1.39, which is highlighted in yellow. And when we looked at this, it really stood out to us. It was very, very evident that a 1.39 shift was fair in in dollar increases across the board to roughly 80% of the property owners out there. For instance, if we look at $500,000 again, residential value versus $500,000 commercial value, the residential value goes up $383, the commercial $351. If we follow that line over, you can see 800,000. We're getting actually closer. Residential, 800,000 value. The increase is $564.80. The commercial is $561.89. We're within dollars of increasing everybody's property, the property tax increase being equal, still increasing the shift. The shift last year was 1.34. The 1.39 has an equal increase on equal values of properties. If we could go over to 1.2 columns on that, Amanda, I'd appreciate it. Okay. Here again, you can see we're within $4. It's very, very equal across the board in impact and increase for equal values to each owner. It's $847 for a $1.2 million residential house and for a $1.2 million commercial building, $842. So this is the way that we thought that the information was best presented so that the Board of Selectmen can make an informed decision of how a shift increases all values, well, not all values, but a broad range of values, which represents about 80% of the property owners in the town of Wrentham. That's pretty much it for my presentation, or the Board of Assessors presentation, I should say. And I'd like to say thank you to Rob for putting this information together. I think there was a lot of work here, and it put together a lot of information. And I think that the selectmen could make a decision if we also wanted to sit down, maybe in a working group session, to go over some of these numbers a little bit more. I believe I've just thrown a ton of information at you, and it's very hard to do that in a Zoom meeting. So I apologize beforehand, and hopefully I did a good job explaining it, but I'd happy to follow up with a working session group if necessary.
Can't hear you, Joe.
Joe,
It's your mic. It's your mic. It seems to be your mic.
yeah, it's your mic, Joe. It's not your voice.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Still nothing.
All right,
There you go.
time for the internet. Do you have any questions for the assessors?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Tom, first of all, I want to thank you for, giving this presentation. There's a lot of information. I like the way the graphics showed up. But is it fair to say that the 1.39 shift is probably the most fair to both residential and commercial?
Tom, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, when you look at the options range, it's definitely the most fair to over 80% of the property owners in the town.
Okay, all right, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tom, and Rob, Tom, Irene, everyone who played a part in this, we really appreciate all your hard work. Clearly, a lot of work went into this presentation. So, Tom, if I'm hearing this correctly, if we look at the, because I know we've looked at these in different ways. We've looked at an average and median in the past, and now you're proposing that we take the range into consideration. So if we look from a median perspective, it seems to me like that 1.43 would be that most evenly split division between resi and commercial from the median perspective. From the average perspective, it looks like the 1.32 shift would be the most even distribution between the two classifications. And then now with the range shift, it clearly shows the 1.39 looks like the most fair or even distribution between residential and commercial. If that is correct, my question to you and the other members is, what are other communities doing to evaluate? Are they using this range, or are they still using a median or an average approach?
If I could answer just one thing first, is that I think what was evident to the Board of Assessors is that when we looked at the median chart or the mean or average chart, it was only a snapshot of those values.
Yep.
And when you look at a snapshot of any number, it skews. You don't know what's happening. That's only probably represents 1% of all parcel owners, property owners in the town. And that's when we decided, let's look at a range and see what it does to the greater majority of all property owners, because we didn't want to impact a residential or commercial property owner, whether they're 500,000 or 1.2 million, unfairly on things. So we decided to put this information together, and it was just very interesting how evenly it came out at 1.39, which is, I'm not going to say exactly the middle between 1.32 and 1.43, but it's somewhere in the middle between that. As far as other communities, I can't answer that. Maybe Rob could. I think Ed did say, though, the other assessors who's not here tonight, that he wasn't aware of any towns that did it with this option range like that, but he found it very interesting with the data that came up from it.
Okay, that's fair. Again, whenever we do something like this, I think it makes a lot of sense from the presentation. My first question is, how do other towns evaluate this, just so we can just try to be consistent and make sure that if this is, if every town is doing it this way, or if we're the only ones doing this way and every other town is still looking at median and average, I just think that's important for us to know when we come to vote, so we can make, we can just have the best snapshot and make the best decision possible. And then if I'm not, Mr. Chair, through you, the second part of my question, Tom, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that there was that graph, the slide that had all the little bubbles in all the different towns and the tax rates for residential and commercial. It looked for 2024 that Wrentham was at $12, and then for commercial we were at 17.37. And if I'm reading this correctly on the range chart, we would be at 11.59 on the residential and 17.52 on the commercial, which is in fact both lower than we were in 2024 on both of those categories.
It's a slight increase on the commercial. It was 1734.
Oh, 1752. I'm sorry. You're right.
And a little lower on the residential. So it makes the town, I think, competitive still when you're looking at commercial and whether somebody's going to locate a commercial business here. And it still offers a very reasonable tax rate for residential home buyers.
Okay, thank you so much. I have no further questions at this time.
Select Board Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate Rod taking the time to go over this with me in great detail the other day. So the part of my concern is the residential property values have gone up 9.3%, which is based right off your chart right here, and the commercial has only gone up 3.18%. So there's right there, your tax base is going to go up exponentially because your home values have gone up so much. Number one, and the other thing that concerns me is your personal property taxes are basically, they're broken out separately, but they're nothing more than additional property tax on the homeowner based off what they have. So if you look at 2024, it said 76% of personal taxes, and then 5% was personal property. So the tax base is 81%.
So the personal property tax, I'm sorry, if you don't mind me explaining
No,
that.
go ahead.
The personal property tax is a business tax. It's like an excise tax on business equipment.
Okay.
So it's got nothing to do with the residential.
All right. My mistake. Thank you. I misunderstood that when we talked about it then. But again, like I said, the property values have gone up 9.3%, and commercial's only gone up 3.18. So my concern is with our current tax base the way it is and the increases, and you've got 3 or 4 large projects coming, that the taxpayers, the residential taxpayers, are going to be, hurt pretty severely, with school, property for a well, DPW building, and the increase for the tri-county. So it's something we need to look at very, very cautiously, as opposed to just taking an average and having minimal increases on our commercial businesses, because the average person can't go to their boss and say, hey, they need more money to pay their taxes, whereas a commercial, they can offset their costs and raise their expenses if need be. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
If I could just point something out there on the options range, what Rob presented here is this does include the 9.3 increase for residential class and only a 3.18% increase for commercial class.
Correct.
It does consider that in the options range that is presented with things. And,
Yep, which he explained to me on Tuesday, I think it was.
Yep, and I think that that the selectmen does need to we all need to look around really and see what's happening in town. There is a lot of everybody, nobody wants to pay anymore. Everybody's struggling with different things, and even if you look at the downtown of Wrentham, you have the Cumberland Farms building that's vacant. You have the office building next door that's got vacancy. You have the old Maples nursing home that's up for sale that's vacant.
This place.
You have a lot of businesses that are hurting too. And if you go up in your price,
Well, Maples doesn't pay taxes because they're nonprofit anyway. So
that's not for that building. That's the other building, I believe, Mr.
Right.
Harrington, on that. That's out back there. This is the separate property that's owned separately. So I think we have to be cautious as a town, on anything that we do with this. And that's why all this data has been put before the selectmen. So thank
Right.
you.
Just to be clear, Maples does pay taxes, but they get a reduced rate being nonprofit. Select Board Member Rouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone, for your information. Very helpful. If I look at this historically, year after year, so correct me if I'm wrong. So I believe the shift was like a 30% increase last year. And if I looked at years before, we would be more do a smaller shift of like 0.8% of what I calculated for the year before that. We tend to do these big jumps and then like a 0.8% after. So last year was a big jump. Are we looking, if we do like a 0.8%, I think that's like at the 1.35, which is relatively close to your 1.39. Am I accurate in taking a look at the historical ways it seems we have done things if I looked at that chart?
What page are you looking at on that?
If I look at your CIP shift is one chart.
That's page 9 you're looking at, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I'm looking at it historically and doing the calculations in terms of the percentage increases, and it seems like we do these big shifts and then adjust it after with a smaller, like it seemed to be like 0.8% if I did my calculations correctly. So it looks like this year, if what you're saying seems more in line with doing more of a 0.8%, well, it'd be a little bit more. You're looking at the 1.39, where mine came out to the 1.35.
Mm-hmm. I think that historically, or when the data was presented to the selectmen too, I think that could be part of the problem of just getting a snapshot of values too. That's where
Okay.
the range may help and create or give the selectmen better information to make a decision on.
Okay. No further questions at this time.
So we have a second meeting scheduled for next Tuesday to do the actual vote. So the board has more time to review the documents and the data received today. So we will see the Board of Assessors next Tuesday for a continuation of the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, before we let them go, do you mind if I just ask through you, Kevin and Rob, just to weigh in on their opinion on, is it median? Is it average? Is it range? Like, what are we seeing out there for other municipalities, what they're using to classify? Because I think Tom and this team did a very good job of making that point. But again, I don't do this full time. I'm still pretty new to municipal government. I appreciate the expertise of Rob and Kevin, at least to weigh in.
Sure. Rob?
So I'm not too sure about other towns. I know median is pretty popular. But I do know some towns that use average as well. At least I've talked to some people in classes. I think it's a good idea to look at both of them, especially when you get a big difference in the values. So for the median, we had no commercial change in value, but for the average, we had a pretty good size one. And we're also looking at two different size businesses and how the impact is going to vary on them.
Yeah, I would agree with Rob there. One thing I can offer is we can put that out on the Norfolk County Managers Listserv. And I can get we can get some more feedback specific to Norfolk County and kind of see what they use. But I agree. I mean, I think I've seen kind of that median mix. It's a little bit across the board depending on the community, and they're not all. Yeah, and to that point, I mean, you look at Franklin, some of those are single tax rate communities, so there is no discussion around splits. But we can at least poll the managers in Norfolk County.
Yes, I appreciate that. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Kevin.
If I could, I just, before the hearing is continued, I just would like to offer any assistance that Rob and I have. We could meet, Rob actually said we could meet on a Saturday morning or whatever it is that would be convenient to any selectman or a couple of selectmen that wouldn't represent a quorum to go over these in more detail. We've put a lot of information out here, so we'd be happy to do that.
I appreciate that, Tommy. Tom,
Mr. Chair, just for point of order, I missed what you said. Did you continue the hearing to a date and time certain?
You offered a Saturday, but was there another meeting?
Yeah, the plan was for our next select board meeting, because we do have to vote this, at a continued hearing. So the plan was for the 19th, which would be our next regularly scheduled select board meeting. I think Mr. Placido's recommendation was, again, if there's any questions, individual select board members not being a quorum that they have to get some answers, certainly can reach out through Rob and try to schedule something. I just want to get into having any type of open meeting law issues. So,
Well, Kevin, while Joe's working through his microphone, I think that's what we discussed. Continuing the public hearing to our next scheduled meeting, which is next Tuesday, 11/19.
11/19. It will be approximately 6:45 to 6:50. Because we have a public hearing at 6:40.
okay.
Perfect.
You need a motion for that, Mr. Chair?
Give me one moment. I'm going to switch computers.
45. Boy.
Recording in progress.
Yes.
While the chairman is actually preparing his mic, could I just make a motion that the Board of Assessors continue its meeting to November 19th and ask for a second?
Second that.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
No. All right, here we go. So we will see you next Tuesday. Let's jump over to tab 1. At this time, I will ask our clerk to read the announcements.
Yes, Mr. Chair, announcements for November 12th, Board of Selectmen meeting, Select Board meeting. Tri-Town Charitable Gala will be held at Lake Pearl on Saturday, December 7th. Join for a night of food and drinks, live music, and celebration benefiting Devontae Johnson, Malia Jezerk, Legacy, and the Labonte family. Tables and tickets may be purchased at lakepearl.com/gala. The Tri-Town Charitable Gala has a variety of sponsorship levels available for purchase. Please contact Kristen Androsi at kandrosi@gmail.com for more information. Wrentham Elementary School Committee and Select Board are still accepting applications through November 13th for the Wrentham Elementary School Committee vacancy. See the town website for more information on how to apply. The annual tree lighting ceremony will be held on Sunday, December 1st, on the town common starting at 6 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order, we didn't make a motion to continue our hearing. I think Select Member Harrington was going to do that.
Kevin, while he's getting situated, can I step in and make the motion?
Yes.
Or ask for the motion? At this time, the vice chair would entertain a motion to postpone the public hearing until next Tuesday, November 19th, at the time discussed prior.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion was made by Selectman Harrington, second by Selectwoman Rouse. We'll do a roll call vote. Selectman Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Gallows, yes. Harrington,
Harrington, yes.
Rouse. Mute. You're on mute.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Motion carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, until the chair is able to vote.
So, Mr. Vice Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, so for the holiday lighting, are we doing anything special for that?
Selectman Anderson, I think per the announcement read by Selectman Harrington, we're doing the on the, oh, do you mean like the reading that was the night before Christmas or whatever?
Correct.
So
Yes.
that's a great question. And we can talk about that right now since we have a second. What's the will of the board? Do we want to continue with that tradition? Do we want to scrap it? Do we want to do something different? I'll start with Selectman Anderson.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's always been well received in the past. I know you've done a great job as divvying up the lines for us. So, but I'll defer to the rest of the board.
Selectwoman Rouse.
Oh, I love the idea. You know, I have my book. I'm ready to roll.
And your hat. Yes, you're
And
very
my hat. Yes.
Selectman Harrington.
I couldn't possibly agree with the other select board members wholeheartedly.
Beautiful. So I think that's what we'll do. No formal vote needed, but we will plan on doing towards the night before Christmas, as long as the chairman is on board. And we will divide up the paragraphs accordingly. Thank you for bringing that up, Selectman Anderson.
My pleasure.
Joe, I think we can hear you. Please.
No.
No, we can't hear you. Okay. Joe, should I, at this time, I'm gonna keep moving. Is that okay with everybody? If I
Yep.
keep things moving?
Yes,
Okay,
Mr.
so, we're gonna bear with me, as I have no notes, so I'm doing this, I think the next item on the agenda, if I'm not mistaken, is tab 3, for us to approve the minutes. So at this time, the vice chair would entertain a motion, to approve the minutes, October 15, 2024 open session meeting minutes, as well as the October 21st, 2024 open session meeting minutes. So the motion would be to approve the October 21st, 2024 and the October 15th, 2024 open session meeting minutes.
So moved.
So I had a motion made by Selectman Anderson, a second by Selectman Harrington. Any further discussion? Being none, we'll do a roll call vote. Selectman Anderson,
Anderson's a yes.
Gallo's a yes. Selectwoman Rouse,
Rouse, yes.
Selectman Harrington,
Harrington, yes.
and Selectman Botash.
Selectman Botash, yes.
Yes, we got
You're
you, my
back.
friend. All right, please take the meeting back.
All right. So that passed 5-0. At this time, the chair entertained a motion to open and close the warrant for the December 16th, 2024 special town meeting.
So moved.
So it's going to open on November 12th and close on November 26th, 2024. Motion made by Selectman Harrington, seconded by Selectman Anderson. Roll call vote.
Anderson's a yes.
Botash, yes.
Gallo's a yes.
Harrington, yes.
Rouse, yes.
I think we lost you again, Mr. Chair. I think he just threw his microphone, so.
He did.
All right. What's next on the agenda? Is it tab 5, this perpetual care expenditure that we have to discuss? I think it is.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so do we have Brian Antonoli, Director of Public Works, with us at this time? Brian, I'll ask you to unmute, give us a very abridged version of what we're doing here.
Yeah, to spend perpetual care money, I need the approval of the board. I have a current bill for the treatment that we already had done to beech tree in the cemetery. You guys approved it last year, and I thought that would perpetually, no pun intended, carry forward, but apparently I have to ask every year. So that's that ask. And then at town meeting, CPC money was approved to buy a ground penetrating radar unit, $15,000 worth. And my ask out of perpetual care is to cover the rest of it.
Okay, and just for the viewing audience, in our packets, we have some invoices here, it looks like, that support this ask and request. So at this time, I'm going to open it up to the board to see if there's any questions for our Director of Public Works, Brian Antonoli. I'm going to start with Selectman Anderson.
Yeah, no questions. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Selectman Anderson. Selectwoman Rouse.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Selectman Harrington.
No questions at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so at this time, Vice Chair would entertain a motion to authorize the expenditure from perpetual care account for infected tree spraying not to exceed $400 and to authorize the expenditure from perpetual care account for ground penetrating radar not to exceed $5,000.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So, motion made by Selectman Innocent and second made by Selectman Innocent. I'm joking aside, I'm kidding. Motion made by Selectman Innocent, second by Selectman Harrington. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Selectman Innocent,
Anderson's yes.
Selectwoman Rouse,
Rouse, yes.
Selectman Harrington,
Harrington, yes.
Gallo, yes. Mr. Chair, can you hear us?
Let me try this again. Select board member Bowdash, yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
I turn it back over to you, sir.
This again. Hello? Okay,
Yep.
Yes.
all right. So next we're gonna go to tab 6. Tab 6 is supposed to be to ratify the Metacomic Public Health Alliance, but there's no information on it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll jump in at this point, give an overview. This is looking for the board to vote ratification of the IMA. It's a more formalized intermunicipal agreement between the 3 communities that make up the Metacomet Public Health Alliance, which is the town of Franklin, the town of Norfolk, and the town of Wrentham. This is a program that we started back in essentially formed in May of 2021, kind of went live with the alliance on July 1st of that year. We had some pre-seed money initially and then kind of formed. This has been an outstanding, probably one of the best state and opportunities, state local partnerships where they've actually for the first time ever seen any direct local public health funding to supplement and deliver public health services throughout the Commonwealth. The town has received over $1.5 million to date. We've been able to expand, as I said, greatly upon the services and just really expanding at no additional cost to our local taxpayers in any of the 3 communities. So been a great initiative. This particular grant year for FY25 mandated the requirement for us to get into a formalized IMA. We have had an annual, since our formation, annual MOA, a memorandum of agreement, which is a little bit less formal. Still an agreement, but a little less formal. This IMA is a requirement, as I said, as a grant recipient, and every shared services and folks that are receiving the Public Health Excellence Grant throughout the Commonwealth need to have an approved IMA. We have other IMAs that are similar. We're actually behind the ball a little bit here late, and it's holding up funding. So I'm just looking for the board to ratify. The reason for that is I had a number of issues with the first rendition that kind of for a number of reasons I pushed back working with Department of Public Health's council, myself and Amanda and some other folks with trying to get this to a place where all 3 communities could agree on. And I think we're language-wise at the best place we can be at. And ultimately, I'll be the signatory as the executive authority, but I just want to formalize the board's vote to ratify the agreement itself.
Is there any questions for Kevin?
No, Mr. Chair.
No question.
Being none, Chair would entertain a motion to ratify the intermunicipal agreement for the Metacomic Public Health Alliance.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion made by Selectman Gallo, seconded by Selectman Anderson. Any further discussion? Being none, roll call vote.
Anderson's yes.
Gallo, sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
Gallo's a yes.
Rouse, yes.
Harrington, yes.
All right, pass 5-0. Any updates on the MBTA communities?
So I'll jump in and ask Selectwoman Rouse to also add to that. The biggest update that we have is that we're working towards we actually have a scheduled airing on Cable 8. I believe it's tomorrow, actually, tomorrow afternoon, where members of the town administration team I believe Kevin, Finance Director Mike King, Selectwoman Rouse, myself, Mike McKnight from the Planning Board are going to sit and have kind of a roundtable discussion at Cable 8. It's going to be recorded for our viewers, and we have been fielding questions. Selectwoman Rouse has been fielding questions and doing a very diligent and very well done job on getting an agenda together for us for talking points. The goal here is this: there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and we are trying to do our best, as we have been during this whole process, keeping our resident taxpayers, up to speed. We're going to give them, a basic breakdown of what the MBTA community's zoning law stipulates. What happens if we comply? What happens if we don't comply? What happens if we decide to wait on compliance? We're going to talk about revenue potential from it. We're going to talk about expense and cost. So I highly recommend that once this is done and aired, we all share it, we look at it, because this is going to be a very important vote on December 16th. And with that being said, through you, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to Selectwoman Rouse to show me anything that I forgot to mention.
I think you covered everything perfectly, Vice Chair Gallo. I just want to mention that we're aware of some other public forums that are being held by other groups throughout town. We are very committed to providing accurate, fair, and balanced information about the MBTA requirements and the requested zoning bylaw change. So just to make a note, the forum that we're doing tomorrow is the only official town moderated panel discussion on the topic. So I just wanted to point that out for our residents so that they understand when viewing the Cable 8 forum being done tomorrow by us, that it is the only one being done by those that are elected and town officials.
Very good point, Selectwoman Rouse. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair.
And then I just want the public to know that these committees and different groups that are forming opinions on social media and holding meetings are not supported by the town. So any data you get regarding any topic that does not come from town hall has not been vetted 100%. Selectman Anderson.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through you, this is for either Vice Chair Gallo or Select Board Member Rouse. Once this is presented on TV, cable TV, are you guys going to be able to send a link to us that we can send to our constituents?
Selectwoman Rouse, I'll have you take that.
Definitely, Select Board Member Anderson. Our intent is to have a link so that we can share on social media, our personal accounts, town website. We want the information to be out there for residents to have it fully in their hands. So when they come on December 16th, they are well prepared and understand all the different aspects of the MBTA.
Terrific. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I just want to reiterate what you said, because it was very important, and people might not be able to hear it. If the information that is out there through any of these other forums or any of the information on Facebook does not come directly through the town administration team or this board or the planning board, it's not vetted, and we cannot attest to the accuracy of it. So we highly recommend the townspeople listen to this presentation that we're going to do and then recirculate per Selectman Anderson's question, because that is the only town sanctioned information thus far in a forum setting. And I think that's what you were trying to say, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you.
And then just one last thing. I really want to thank the residents of the town who took the time to submit their questions. There were a lot of really well thought out questions regarding this, and each of them has been incorporated into tomorrow's forum so that they can get the answers to those questions.
Great point.
All right.
The only thing, Mr. Chair, through you, the only thing, if you could add what time it's on and when it'll be broadcasted. If you already said it, I apologize, but I didn't hear it.
We're recording it tomorrow, and then it will be available after. It's not going to be a live record. We're just going to record it and then be sharing it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. go to Debbie.
No updates this evening, Mr. Chair.
Okay, my voice is sore. I'm gonna turn it over to Selectman Anderson.
Well, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Amanda, you heard those? Let's do a roll call vote.
Anderson's a yes.
Bodash, yes.
Gallo, yes.
Rose, yes.
Harrington, yes.
All right. Thank God it's over. Well, we did it. Have a great night, everybody.
Well, hey, we'll always do it. We're a team. We'll always do it. Good job tonight, everybody.
All right, have a good one. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.